You know, I was thinking about this topic, which is so important, which is so very important, and I started talking about what does the Bible say, right? And we'll get into it in a little bit. And so I started reading, and I tell my wife all the time, and why this is so important. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 9. Likewise, also the woman should adorn themselves in respectable apparel, with modesty and self-control. Let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit, I can't even say it. I cannot finish this. Now I say this to my wife, and she looks at me. That's not what the Bible says, really. I mean, if you think about it, we're going to talk about it in a little bit. Now I joke about this all the time. Ephesians says, wives, submit to your husband as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church. Did you hear that, Carrie? It says, wives, submit to your husband. Listen. If you just start listening, thank you. I don't think we would have this conversation today. I don't think we'd be here talking about communication at all. But that doesn't happen.
They will be counseling you.
They'll be counseling me. That's always the case. I open myself for counseling later. And I charge to be counseled. I don't pay people. You know, I think what's important about all of this is being there for each other, respecting each other, listening to each other is so important. Without further ado, let me introduce our speakers. Gale and PeggySue. Gale from South Bend, Indiana, moved to Phoenix in 2016, started attending Iron Sharpens Iron since week 1, coordinates our golf outings, retired from Honeywell Aerospace after 41 years in January. He's retired now, but now he plays golf. That's his way of saying I coordinate golf outings for Iron Sharpens Iron. New season of life includes volunteering weekly at CCV and the First Tee. First Tee is a national organization teaching life skills of honesty, sportsmanship, and respect through the game of golf to young people who would not otherwise have affordable access to the game. PeggySue, his better half, originally from South Bend, Indiana, moved to Phoenix in 2007, continues to work full-time, enjoys the outdoors, traveling, and hiking. They've been married for 5 years and have a passion for finding ways to improve our marriage and sharing our knowledge and experiences with each other, or with others as well. Ted, what did I miss? All right, without further ado, let me bring in our speakers. Can we do an Iron Sharpens Iron welcome, please?
Thank you, Sean. Well, good morning. That was a great intro, Shaw. Thank you very much. I'll second what he said. It's just great to see everybody here. Great to see the couples here sharing in the message today. You know, we appreciate you having us back. We were here in February. We did give a kind of our presentation in February, and so the fact that, you know, that was the first time we had a woman here in Iron Sharpens Irons with PeggySue. So now the fact that we've opened it up and we see spouses here, it's just really awesome. So I just want to say up front that I'm just honored to be up here with her. She's an amazing woman, and you'll see that today, and we'll as we go through this presentation. So again, thanks for having us back.
Thank you, and thank you to all the ladies for being here today. Like Gale said, when back in February when I came, I was the only woman. I felt like I was walking into the lion's den, like what's going on? But yet there was this huge curiosity factor, like Shah had mentioned. I was curious about what it was really that Gale was going to, you know, every weekend. And I'm so thankful and grateful for Iron Sharpens Iron and the support of men and the network that Gale has created as a result of this. So I feel entirely blessed, and again, I'm thankful that he's able to be a part of it. But I'm glad you all ladies are here because I feel like I have some reinforcement today. I just want to set the stage up front and just say that Gale and I are not experts in the field of marriage at all. We're not counselors, we don't have any formal training. However, we do have a passion for marriage, and we want our marriage to be the best that it can be. We don't want a good marriage or, oh, your marriage is fine. We want a really great marriage. So we really lean in and look for opportunities, whether it's through seminars, retreats, digging in a little bit deeper, maybe into some messages on marriage or communication or various things that we hear at our church that we go to. So we attend Christ Church of the Valley, CCV, as you're probably familiar with. But those are the types of things that we're going to share with you today. Just some tips and tools and resources that we find helpful, and then also different experiences that we've had personally within our own marriage, or perhaps that we've learned from other couples as well. So I just wanted to set the stage up front on that. Last time we were here, we talked about a lot of different topics. And as we talk to different couples, and based on research and things that we read as well, it seems like communication is the number one thing that tends to be a barrier or a little bit difficult in marriages. So we thought, well, let's take a little bit deeper dive into that today. So that's one of the reasons why we have that as our main topic.
Thanks. So the topics that we're going to talk about today is, the first thing is going to be God's design in marriage, and what does God say our marriage should look like? The second thing is we'll get into the communication and some of its complexities and why can it be difficult for marriages and for relationships to have communication issues. And then the third thing we'll talk about is how do we improve that communication. And for us, we're going to talk about some aspects of the power of communication, because we think that's one way connecting, doing a better job connecting will help us do a better job with communication. So those are three things that we'll talk about. So let's get started. We're going to talk about God's design for marriage. And so I just want to let you know that where we get our information is from the greatest instructional book ever written on marriage, and that's the Bible. So all the answers are in the Bible. We'll touch on a few things today, but if there's any time there's a question, just going to suggest that you open the Bible and look there, because the Bible typically has the answers on marriage and on life as well. So where do we start? Well, we're going to start at the beginning, and that's in Genesis 2:18, and that's when the Lord was creating the earth, He had created Adam, He'd created man, and He realized very quickly that man needed a helper. So in Genesis 2:18, He says, the Lord said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." So this is really the first time we have an illustration of God taking the rib of Adam and the flesh, and then creating a woman, calling her woman. And this is where the illustration that men and woman will come together as one. And so that's where we start. And then he goes on to be very specific about marriage. And in Genesis 2:24, it's, "So a man will leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and the two will become one." So that's what marriage. This is what marriage looks like: is husbands and wife coming together at one. And so how do we do that? And Paul helped us out there, and he told us about responsibilities for husbands and wives. And for husbands, he said in Ephesians 5:25, he says, "Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church, and give yourself up for her." So when you're talking about what's the standard, what's true north with being a husband, that's it. It's as Christ loved the church. And so that's really easy to say, difficult to do. We'll never achieve that as husbands, but that's what we should strive for. And we need to, this is saying that we need to sacrifice for our spouse. The love for our wives should be unquestionable, undeniable. So if someone's looking at me, there should never be a question, well, does he love Peggy Sue? It should be evident. And if Peggy Sue's ever questioning, does he still love me? Then I'm not fulfilling my responsibility as a husband. So it's very clear, difficult, but very clear.
And then Ephesians also talks about what's the wife's role in marriage. And Shaw kind of touched on this at the beginning during the introduction. But as it says in the Bible, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. Sometimes that verse can be a bit controversial. Some people might feel like, oh, that might have been relevant back in the day, but not today. That's, it's not applicable. I'll share with you our perspective on that. As Gale mentioned earlier, when God first created Adam, I envision him kind of, created Adam and took a step back, and he's observing, and he's probably like, wow, this old boy needs some help, right? And so that's when he created, woman, right? And so I think that that's a true indication of the need of partnership in marriage. And Gale and I, that's the way that we work within our marriage. We partner on everything, every decision, whether it's about kids, family, finances, what door we're going to put on the house. We just align and we partner and we communicate on everything. However, I also believe, and we believe, that as his wife, it is my role to support him and respect him and to understand and be obedient to what God's plan is for the role of the husband. And so therefore I lift him up and encourage him, because the more that I am pointing him towards being that husband that God intends him to be, the stronger our marriage is going to be.
Thanks. And the last thing I want to touch on is our being called to serve, and this is both for the husband and the wife. And so I'm going to just read Philippians 2:3. It says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility value others above yourselves." So what this means to me, I'll just talk about for me, this means that when I get up every morning, that the first thing I do is I think of ways that I can serve PeggySue better. So that's my mission. And so it's important, I think it's both husbands and wives, that's kind of the approach that we take, is that we're called to serve. And if we have that serving mindset, I think that will help us, all of us, in our relationships and in our marriages.
And I would follow, obviously us as wives, we would follow that same mindset. If our husbands are making us the priority and they're thinking about serving us and putting us first, we need to do the same thing for them. That way there's no one that's going out kind of on the sidelines that isn't getting any attention. Like for Gale and I, he gets up and I know I'm his priority. He's thinking about serving me. And if I get up and I'm thinking about me and I'm thinking about serving me, well, who's taking care of Gale, right? And so you need to make sure it's the back and forth and you have that balance. The takeaway here on this slide on Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. How many of you have heard that hymn before? I remember learning that way back when I was little in Bible school. But I just think that that's so important. And again, that's just a reminder of going back to the basics and the fundamentals of what is God's design for marriage, and making sure that we understand what our roles are as husbands and wives and that we're fulfilling that. That being said, you can take a look at, just kind of assessing yourself, right? And I brought a mirror as a prop to, kind of just do some self-reflection. And here's some questions that you could ask yourself. Do you believe that there is a God? And are you willing to apply the principles of the Bible to your life? Sometimes some people can look at the Bible as a menu and just a la carte. I'm going to pick the principles that I want to abide by, and the other ones, and they might not feel too good, so I'm just going to kind of overlook that one. But the reality is the Bible in and of itself, the wholeness of it, is something that we should be applying all of the principles, and albeit some of them might be a little more difficult than others, but those are the things that we need to be looking at. And then the third one, are you willing to pray for yourself and for your spouse? Depending on where you're at in your marriage, if your relationship isn't very strong, or you might have some hard feelings or going through conflict with your spouse, quite honestly, you might not feel like praying for them. But God doesn't call us to pray for when we feel like it, right? God, He loves us unconditionally, and as our goal is to try to live the life as of Christ, and that is to be unconditional and to always be loving regardless of the situation. Our spouses are gifts from God. And if you think about if God were to walk in here today and have a gift for all of us and He hands that to you, what would you do with that gift? I envision it having red tape on it, fragile, handle with care, right? If we got a gift from God handed to us, we would be holding on to that, protecting it, nurturing it, treasuring it, right? That's what we should be doing for our spouses as well.
And so kind of to sum up, God's design for marriage, what it comes down to is it's oneness. And that's where we have a complete unity with each other. It's a merger of body, soul, and spirit. So a way to depict that is in our relationships, if you think about one of these tennis balls is the husband, and one of the tennis balls is the wife. And as we have God as the center, and we continue to lift to lift up God, what happens? So as a couple, we move towards oneness. So again, it's important, to be God-centered, and that will help you get your relationship with your spouse to oneness, and that's really what we're trying to achieve. So now we're gonna move into kind of what we're here to talk about is communication, and communication is complex, and that's why we have so many difficulties as couples, because it's not easy. So the first thing is, we need to have the freedom for differences in our communication styles. So we're different by design. PeggySue's different than I'm different than her. So it's the way we brought up. There's a lot of reasons for that. So we can decide. We have to decide what we want to do with those differences. Will they divide us, or will they reunite us? And a good example here is just kind of the way we make decisions. And PeggySue talked about the fact that we do have a partnership, but we're different. So PeggySue, she can kind of get, I'm going to just 10 or 15% of some information and make a decision and be firm on a decision and let's go. Where I'm more well, wait a minute, you don't have all the information. Let me Google this for 5 days and figure it out, right? And so that frustrates her to no end. And it frustrates me when I look at the way she's made her decision. I'm like, you don't have all the information. So we both know that about each other. So when we're making decisions, PeggySue knows that she can still make her decision, and she can share it, but she has to understand that my style is I need to do a little research. Now I can't spend 5 days doing the research because I know that's what that's going to do for her. So I may only get 75% of the information, but when we come back together, and have that discussion, usually the decisions are much better, they're much stronger than if we would have, just jumped on PeggySue's or waited forever. I would have never made a decision. So, use those differences as strengths. And then the other thing is, when we talk about communication styles, just talk about men. Men, we like to communicate, simple, direct, to the point. Don't throw breadcrumbs on the floor and let me kind of pick them up and see, what you want me to do. Don't ask questions and think I'm going to figure out what you want me to do. So a good example of this is, okay, we had a monsoon storm the night before. And PeggySue will say, hey, did you see the patio? Yeah, I seen the patio. And then she says, hey, did you know that, that monsoon, there was a lot of stuff and debris has blown around. And I said, oh yeah, there was a lot of high winds. I heard, woke me up at night. Yeah. And so then she goes out to lunch and she says, Gale, he just never wants to do anything around the house. Instead of saying, Gale, that storm last night, patio's a mess. Can you take care of that for me? So simple, direct communication is what we like.
Yep. And with women, we tend to be more conversational. We want to sit down, have a conversation, have it be engaging, some dialogue back and forth, get some feedback, some interaction. And men, again, they're just like impatient sitting there, okay, when's she going to get to the punchline so I can move on to the next thing type thing. Or they're sitting there listening somewhat to what you're saying, but realistically they're listening for what is the problem, because they want to jump in and solve and fix whatever it is that you want to talk about, right? And a lot of times that's not what we want. We just want someone just to have a conversation with us, and we want to be heard. As far as a couple elements that deal with communication, speaking, of course, is one of them. It's really important to make sure that you are transparent, just being open and honest and saying what needs to be said. Sometimes that might be a bit difficult, but, not beating around the bush and just, laying out there what's on your heart or what the situation is really going to be important. Also, you can preface a conversation sometimes. That helps set the stage. For example, if there are times maybe I've had a difficult day at work, and, I'll say to Gale, you know what, I had a hard day today. I just need to vent. Can we talk? So he knows that this is a listening opportunity. He's just basically going to sit there, right? Or if I have an issue or something I need fixed, I'll tell him, you know what, I need your advice. Can you come here for a minute? Come in the bathroom or something like that, whatever the situation might be. So now he knows he's on point. He's expected to get in there and help me with something. So prefacing the conversation a lot of times can help set the right direction. The other thing is creating a safe environment. We always want to make sure that our spouse feels comfortable coming to us no matter what the situation is. Something that Gale and I try to live by is there isn't anything that we can't get through together with God on our side. And so regardless of maybe how difficult a situation might be, we need to make sure we're creating that safe environment. What I mean by that is Gale needs to feel comfortable coming to me and telling me something that he knows that I'm not going to necessarily like or be well received without flying off the handle. Because if that were to be the way that I would normally react or respond, the likelihood is he's not going to come to me with those things. So now he's in a situation where he's keeping this stuff inside, and that's not good for him, it's not good for me, and it's not good for our marriage. So just be mindful of creating that safe environment. If you know going into a conversation that it is going to be difficult, be prepared to, talk things out and lay it out, but also give yourself some time to take a step back and process. A lot of times for men, they need that time to process. And so just be mindful that that's part of your safe environment. Have the discussion, take a step back, give time to process, and then come back in and restart the conversation.
And on the other side of that communication is listening. So I'm going to just highlight a couple of things on listening. And the first thing is, to be an effective listener, you need to have focused attention. And so one of the things, for me, if we're going to have a discussion on a Sunday, so on Sundays I like to watch football, and if Peggy Sue's on the couch and I'm watching a football game, that's really not a good time for us to be having a discussion, right? She's going to be talking, and I'm 60% on a football game, 40% on her, and then she gets mad at me because I'm not listening.
You never listen.
Yeah. So be just be selective on when you have a discussion, when you're going to have that discussion. So it may look something, on a Sunday, it may look something like, hey, Gale, I know you're watching football. Can you turn it off for 5 or 10 minutes? Because I really have this thing we need to talk about. Or, hey, how about if after the game that we sit down for 10 minutes and discuss this topic? So I'm, when I'm going to be listening, I'm going to be focused on her, and I'm not going to be distracted by anything. So that's kind of a give and take for both. She needs to know that Sunday's football day, and so anyway, so just there's some things you can do there, and then listen with acceptance and understanding, avoid emotional invalidation. So here's an example. I won't say it ever happened, but here's an example. Any evening, Peggy Sue's sitting on the couch and she says, "I'm cold," and the first thing I think of is, "You're cold. Temperature's set at 76. You're in them big old flannel pajamas. How can you be cold?" Instead of saying, "Peggy Sue, what can I do for you? Can I turn up the heat? Can I get you a blanket?" So again, don't validate what the issue is and what the concern is with your spouse, and don't think that she's attacking you because the temperature's not set right. And then the last thing, to have good listening is ask clarifying questions. So you can say, "Well, what did you mean by that? Can you say that in a different way? How about if I just reiterate that back to you? Is this what you said? Is this what you meant?" So it's important to make sure that you're connected. You have that, that you are asking those questions, and you know exactly what your spouse is trying to say.
You have me sitting on the couch a lot in this conversation.
Yeah, I know. We're gonna come to that later. And then the last thing is just having that connection. So what if Peggy Sue's trying to tell me something, and this is kind of what the connection on my end looks like. I mean, it's I got 1,000 things that are trying to come in here, and along with her communication. So you have to have good connection, and that's what we'll talk about on the next slide. So if you look at this couple, you're thinking, hey, do they have connection? And you're looking at them and they say, wow, yeah, they're embracing. That looks like, they're connected. But then look at, you look closely, and each of them has a phone in their hand, and she's looking at what the posts were on Facebook, and he's looking at this fantasy football team and want to know how they're doing. So are they connected? And the answer is no. They're close, but just by being hugging each other, but they are definitely not connected. So does anybody know of this, seen people being distracted, being close but being distracted? No? Okay. Okay. Well, let's talk about some things that can distract us from being focused on each other.
Yeah, so here's a list of distractions. We're not going to go through all of these, but I'll just touch on a couple of them. So social media is the first one. I mean, gosh, what a huge time sucker, that can be. How many times have you been out to dinner and you look around the room and there's a couple sitting at a table and they're both on their mobile device, right? They're not even having a conversation. And so just being mindful of that, not saying that you can't participate or be on social media, but just being mindful that can be a distraction. Kids, God love them, but they can take up a whole lot of time and energy, right? And so a lot of times what happens, and statistics show this, that once a child becomes part of a family, part of your marriage, the satisfaction in marriage goes down drastically. And a lot of times it's because the focus of your family and your marriage now is on the children. And so what Gale and I talked about earlier is, husband and wife as oneness and one with God, that kind of falls to the wayside. And so just being mindful that, granted, your family and your children are priorities, of course, but you have to make sure you're always going back to the basic and focusing on God's design for marriage. And again, that's keeping your spouse a priority in line with God.
And then there's a couple other distractions. Can be your hobbies or sports. So for me, you all know I'm an avid golfer. So that to play golf, it's 5 hours. It takes 5 hours to play a round of golf. So if I'm doing that too frequently, it's easy to get disconnected. Or if you have a hobby where you're constantly working on that hobby, you got to be careful that you're allowing time to spend with your spouse so you don't get disconnected.
And I think the other thing that I would say with that is, lean in, right? This because, Gale's an avid golfer. I like the sport of golf, but I do not golf. But there'll be times when I'll go out with him and I'll drive the cart and have fun. But it's a way for me to insert myself into his life, into something that he enjoys, and then it becomes something that we enjoy together. So look for opportunities of where you can do that instead of it being, separate all the time.
And another one is seasons of life. So life changes, right? And so this is and communication, this message is really something that we had to go through. So Shaw told you I retired in January. And prior to that, PeggySue and I worked for the same company. We rode to work together probably 3 to 4 days a week. And so we always had this connection, an hour to work, an hour back. And so we always had this connection. We had our friends, we knew each other's friends, we knew who we worked with. And so that was a big connection point for us. And so now that's gone. PeggySue's working remote. She's in the den all day, and I'm out golfing and doing whatever, volunteering, and so it's easy to get disconnected, and so you have to constantly be looking at yourselves and looking at the situation, and you have to adjust.
The last one I'll touch on is worldly view. Today's society has many opinions and things about marriages. But you just need to really make sure, again, that you're focusing on the biblical principles and the design that God has for marriage. And one thing I always think to myself, and I actually have a little sticky note on my computer because it applies to everything, not just marriage, but am I being led by the world or am I being led by the Word? And that's something to be mindful of, in your marriage. So just being aware of some of those distractions out there, I think, are helpful.
And I'm going to just read the takeaway real quick. It says, you may not be disconnected because of poor communication, but have poor communication because of being disconnected. Think about that. So with that, how do we improve connection? So this is where we're going to talk about some ways that can help your marriage and help your relationship. And so some of the things we're going to share with you is from John Gottman, and he introduced a concept in his book, The 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work, of love maps. And this is the part of the brain where you store the relevant information about your partner's life. So likes, dislikes, fears, hopes, aspirations, those types of things. So PeggySue's going to get into a little more detail on those.
So I think the concept of love maps is really interesting and it makes sense. It involves, taking a genuine interest in your partner. It means making plenty of mental space, right? As Gale had mentioned, just to store what are those things, preferences, styles, hopes, dreams that your spouse has. And the reason why that's important is because you can recall on those things and have conversations on those things. For example, I know when I think about Gale's love map and his past experiences that he has, oftentimes I can pick out a few things and say, hey, tell me again about your grandma. He loved his grandmother, and every time you talk about her, he smiles, he just lights up. And so that's something positive that he likes to talk about, that I know he gets a good feeling when he starts to have that conversation. And so that's something that I like to bring up. So that's a way just for us to stay connected. And not everyone knows, except all of you now know, that Gale had quite admirable about his grandma. But those little things like that are things that you can bring up as conversation pieces. How many times have you heard, either in your current marriage or just people that you might know, they might just say, you know what, we don't have anything in common anymore. We just don't have anything to talk about. You can refer to the love map. There's tons of nuggets and things in there that you can bring up at any time just to talk about, and kind of feels like it rekindles things a bit. And then keeping the love map up to date. The love map can change daily based on life happening things, right? And so as Gale mentioned, we had this big transition for us, him going into retirement and me continuing to work, and our day-to-day our styles were just now totally different. The people that he has in his life now that he engages with are different than what he had previously. So I have to make mental notes of, okay, he's got this new friend now, he's met at Iron Sharpens Iron, his name's Frank, they golf together occasionally, and Frank's got a wife and she teaches Zumba. I have to think of all this stuff. And so I'll ask him from time to time, hey, how's Frank doing? And various things like that. And that's just a way of leaning in, again, taking an interest, but making those notes on the love map and keeping it up to date.
Yeah, and what this does, it actually helps us we say to find and still seek. So how do we continue to pursue our spouse? When we were dating, we knew everything about him. So we spent time and we worked at it. So we need to continue to pursue that. Using love maps is one way to do that. And the saying is, you can say I do, and now we're in a mode of staying I do. And so we're active in trying to understand, changes in each other's lives so we can stay connected.
And bottom line is just, why does this all matter, really? It's about being connected, that you have that strong bond, because life happens, right? There are some difficult things that come up in our lives, and it can be difficult to work through those things. But if you are united and you have a strong bond and you are closely connected, it's much easier to get through those stressful life events, because you're united and you're not like miles apart, and all of a sudden you have drop this bomb of an issue right in the middle of your marriage, and now you got to try to come together and figure it out. If you're already together and you're united, it makes it so much easier. Okay, now this is the fun part. Now we're going to test how well you know your spouse. So we're going to have a large group activity, and so everybody will need a sheet of paper, a pen and a sheet of paper. And the way this is going to work is I'll give you a minute to grab pen and paper. Okay, so the way this is going to work, this is not a group exercise with respect to your spouses. Everybody's going to answer the questions independently, so there's no chatter between spouses, because we want to really see how connected you are. And the way this is going to work is there's 5 questions up here, and you're going to answer those relative to your spouse. So the 5 questions are: what's your spouse's favorite meal? What was your spouse's best friend in childhood? What does your spouse fear the most? What is your spouse's favorite dessert? And it could be desserts, because you know how it's difficult just to have one. And then what are 2 of the spouse's aspirations, hopes, and wishes? So what this looks like is
as you're going to answer these questions, and for example, I'm going to write down what Peggy Sue's favorite meal is. So that's what I'm going to do. And then what we're going to do afterwards is we're going to give you 4 or 5 minutes, and then we're going to ask a couple or two to get up and answer those questions, and let's see how many of those that you know about your spouse. So hopefully we'll get a couple or two that will help us work through this exercise. So with that, here we go again. It's independent, no conversations between spouses, but answer the 5 questions.
And if you're a couple and you're done, cannot cheat.
Nope.
Don't look at your spouse's paper now. Don't do that. So if we have a couple that's ready, you can raise your hand and.
Or yeah, the other thing I want to say, so if your spouse is not here, answer the questions, and when you get home, you can ask your spouse the same thing and go through the same exercise. Go through the same exercise at home.
And again, this was from the 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work by John Gottman. So there's actually 20 questions, but we just picked 5.
Yeah.
But it's a fun exercise. We went through it before.
Yeah, we aced it. We had 20 out of 20, so just so you know.
All right. Does anybody want to share? Come on, some brave souls.
They may not be done. We'll give you another minute. But you should know these, like, right on the top of your head, right? So, Mike, you're ready to go? Sure.
He's
Awesome.
ready to go. I'll bring the mic over. Hold on.
So I'll read the question, and then Mike, you're going to answer, and then we're going to get a nod, yes or no, from your lovely wife, and then she'll do the same for you. So we're going to start with question number 1. What is your spouse's favorite meal?
Crab legs.
Oh, way to go! So, go. What's his favorite meal?
Steak and potatoes.
1 for 1. Way to go! Next question. Who was your spouse's best friend in childhood?
Sarah Cambanis.
Oh, got the nod. Yes. Way to go.
David Munoz.
Okay, 2 for 2. What does your spouse fear the most?
Her son dying.
Okay.
I said failure and heights.
Okay, 3 for 3. What is your spouse's favorite dessert or desserts?
Mint chocolate ice cream.
Okay, nailed that one.
You and I could be besties.
I said brownie a la mode or just ice cream.
Okay, we're acing it here. This one's going to be a little more difficult, I think. What are 2 of your spouse's aspirations, hopes, and wishes?
Get our grandson into NCS, pay off our house, and do a flip.
Way to go.
I said get his pilot's license and be recognized as being close to God, godly.
Great.
Way to go. 5 for 5. One more. Jeff. First question is your spouse's favorite meal.
Who else is sharing? Jeff?
Jeff.
All right.
All right, so I said for her favorite meal would probably be number 4 also, which would be Dairy Queen Cookie Dough Blizzard. or as far as if it's real food, probably just about anything from Mochilero.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, or scallops.
Right.
Which are
So
also Mochilero.
exactly, that's why I said that.
How about Jeff's?
Oh, Italian sausage and peppers penne.
Okay.
I do like a
I was
fillet.
going with one that I make.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
Best friend in childhood?
So this one I didn't get right, but I got her one.
No buts.
Oh, it is?
That's right.
I got it right.
Oh, way to go, Jeff.
It's a.
Spelled it wrong. That's okay.
Oh, that's
That's her friend Leslie.
okay.
Do you know me?
Joey Acklin.
Yes, that's correct.
Sweet. Next one is fear the most.
Biggest fear, the kind of the funny one would be spiders.
Yes.
But as a Enneagram 7 being excluded.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
That's good. All right. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, yours?
Yeah.
Like financial security and uncertain future.
Okay, great. Great. So you guys are nailing it as well.
Dessert.
Repeat number one, Dairy Queen cookie dough blizzard. Is that right?
Unless yours takes it now. Pazuki.
That is true. Those Pazookies, that warm cookie with ice cream on it. What's the place that down? Okay, but wait, no. What's the place that? No, not Pete's Tap Room. What's the one that we go to? The Italian place? No, not Oregano's.
Oh, where?
Okay, we'll figure it out. Yeah,
There's a really good one, but all of them are great.
okay,
Yep.
spouse aspirations, hopes.
For aspirations, her two aspirations, I would say being a great mom and raising our children well would be one of them. And the other one is helping as many women as possible through their mental health struggles.
Great.
Yep.
Great.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
A full-time coaching career and leaving corporate, and like financial freedom to travel.
True.
All right.
All right.
Way to go.
Way to go.
Good connection. That's a round of applause for both couples. So good job. Good job. You know, you can see that connection. You can see how important that can be in the relationship. So now we're going to introduce another concept, and we're going to have John Gottman help us here. And it's called the emotional bank account. So we got a brief video that will show on what that is.
Ever wonder why some couples make it and others don't? Scientist Dr. John Gottman did. He spent 40 years studying thousands of couples to find out exactly what separates the relationship masters from the relationship disasters. Shakespeare compared love to a rose. Gottman uses a different metaphor, an emotional bank account. You know how a regular bank account works, so what's an emotional bank account? It represents the positive and negative balance in your relationship. The best couples maintain a high balance. Couples that break up are often in the red. You make deposits through positive interactions, and you withdraw through negative ones. What does a deposit look like? It's a simple act of showing your partner that you care for and support them. It's as easy as sending your partner a good luck text before a meeting or cooking them dinner after a long day. And pay attention when your partner shows you their admiration and support. Notice when they're investing in your relationship.
Thank you.
A withdrawal is either hurtful behavior toward your partner or ignoring their invitations to connect. But withdrawals and deposits don't have equal weight. In fact, Gottman found it takes 5 positive interactions to make up for 1 negative one. Happy couples maintain at least this 5-to-1 ratio. If you make constant deposits and keep your balance high, you're saving up for a rainy day when you'll need to cash in on that goodwill. Gottman notes that small daily deposits, like asking your partner how their day was, is far more important than the occasional over-the-top romantic gesture. Positivity leads to more positivity. This is not about keeping score. It's about investing in your relationship and your shared emotional bank account, moving from me to we. So keep your balance high by doing nice things every day and recognizing when your partner does them for you. You'll build up that emotional bank account in no time.
So the emotional bank account, we need to invest in that. And so how do we do that? You know, there's a couple ways, and we'll just touch on these briefly, but fix your partner firmly in your heart during a couple times a day. So for us, what we do is when we wake up, when we leave home, come home, go to bed, those are opportunities that we just simple gesture of a quick kiss. And I can tell you that if I'm taking 3 steps in the garage door and I fail to kiss PeggySue goodbye, this connection that we have, I feel that pull me back in the house and go make that connection. And then PeggySue, I know we had a situation where I missed a couple days at night, because I fell asleep. But anyway, it was noticeable. We had a discussion about it. That hey, I didn't give her a kiss before we went to bed. So it's important to us, but it's just one way you can do that. Another way is, the recommendation is hug your spouse 6 times a day for 6 seconds. 6 seconds? That's uncomfortable for us even. So I'm just recommending it because it's good. There's goodness to it. Actually, there's studies that it says it helps release some mood boosting chemicals. So it will help your relationship. We haven't done got to the 6 seconds yet, but there are studies that have gone, research has been done that says that's very positive.
We have gotten to the 6 seconds, but it's funny, every time we embrace now, right away we're going 1, 2, 3. I know we're both counting in our heads, but it's been kind of fun. The other one is take 10 seconds a few times a day to think positive things about your spouse. And don't know if you caught it in the video, but positivity leads to positivity. And so there's always, great qualities and positive things about your spouse that you can think about and recall and ponder on. There's negative things as well, but negativity is going to bring in negativity. And so, try to stay away from the negative. Try not to be so critical, but just focus on those positive things and making sure that your spouse feels appreciated and that you're thinking of them in a positive way. One last thing on the slide that I want to share is a thing called the Marriage Journal. This is a great resource that we stumbled upon. Our niece actually shared this with us. Her and her husband use it as well. And we found that this is a great way for us to connect. And the reason being is that there are specific questions in here that you ask each other. We have dedicated time where we sit aside and we pull out our journal and we ask each other these questions. And it's just been a great way for us to have deeper conversations. And sometimes you feel like you may not really have much to talk about. Kind of the same old thing happens, week after week. But asking these specific questions, we have found has really, engaged in some more fruitful conversations. So a couple of the questions are, what brought you joy this week? What is something that was hard for you this week? What's one thing that I can do for you this week? So thinking about serving your spouse. And another one is, how can I pray for you this week? And so just asking those simple questions, you get insight into what's going on in that person's life. And like again, Gale and I, we kind of are on 2 separate paths as far as, our day-to-day type things. But it's a way for him to get a look inside into what are some of the things that are going on with me and some things that are going on with him as well. So just wanted to share that with you. That I feel that this is a great resource, especially to help initiate some good, healthy conversation.
Okay, so to kind of close this one out, it's, the emotional bank account. There's, some things you want to be cognizant of is that you may think that you're making deposits in this emotional bank account, but you're really not. And one of the reasons it could be was the fact that you're not meeting your spouse's love language. And we talked about this the last time we were here, so we're going to just briefly touch on it again. And there's 5 love languages. There's a book out there by Gary Chapman that talks about these love languages. And we'll kind of just briefly talk through the first of those 5. So the first one is words of affirmation. So if you like to be complimented by your spouse, hear words of, things build you up, like PeggySue says, she'll build me up. That makes me feel good. I mean, that is a love language of mine. It just makes me feel good. The other thing is, maybe writing a letter to your spouse if that's your love language. And so those types of things help satisfy that. The other thing is physical. The next one is physical touch. And I know this is PeggySue's love language. So this is about, just holding hands, kissing, showing the love for your partner and for your spouse. So if your spouse, that's your love language, take time to do that. And then the third one is receiving gifts. So what kind of gets you all charged up is the fact that you get recognized with a gift. Then that's your love language. So again, for me, that's also one of mine. And it kind of ties into the words of affirmation, where some, PeggySue or somebody's recognizing me for something I done, or PeggySue recognizing me for the love I've shown her.
I actually have it pretty easy because all of these love languages are Gale's. So no matter what I do, he's feeling love. So that's a great thing. But the other one is quality time. So that's really just a matter of just making that time just to be together, spend time together. Could be going for a walk, could be watching a movie, whatever it is that you like to do together. But it's really just spending that quality time. That's the way that you feel loved, is when somebody spends quality time with you. And that is another one of mine. So Gale is very cognizant of making sure that outside of his golf, he makes sure that he has time for us to connect. And then acts of service, that's some simple things as, helping out around the house with chores, just doing random acts of kindness. If that is your spouse's love language, make sure that you're doing those things, because when you do those things, they're going to feel loved.
So here's the last time we were here, we talked about PeggySue's love language being physical touch and quality time. So at that time, what we did is we went out and we bought a big 2 lounger that fit both of us, And so we have that out on the patio so we can watch TV, sit by the fire, and the two of us be together. Well, when we're here in February, Peggy Sue made the comment that she wants something similar to the, for the house, inside the house. So that's where the color came up. And so this is basically a recliner, two-seater recliner. So again, so we can have that closeness and have that quality time. So I'm going to give you an update on that, or Peggy Sue will. And so here's what it looks like today.
Yeah. So this is the reality. I guess earlier on he kept talking about me, Peggy Sue sitting on the couch, Peggy Sue sitting on the couch. The reality is Peggy Sue is still sitting on the couch on the other side of the room because Gale is enjoying the cuddler with our two cats, Rocky and Apollo. But nonetheless, no, we do enjoy it, and it's just something little that, it was important to me, and Gale recognized that. And so all funniness aside, it's just a little way for us to, spend the quality time together.
And so I just want to point out a couple of things about this, though. So, buying the cuddler, I could have said, man, that's a big deposit in an emotional bank account. But really, it's not. It means nothing to the emotional bank account. The fact that we sit in it together, I get those cats out of there and get Peggy Sue in there. The cuddler is only a vehicle for us to have quality time and be close. And the other thing I want to point out is how great it is to be part of Iron Sharpens Iron. And here's why. So when we talked about that, I can't tell you the number of guys who have asked me, hey, did you get that color yet? And being serious and being serious about it. And so what I want to say is the fact that as Iron Sharpens Iron, as we become more transparent, as we learn more about each other as men, that we can help each other. That's what it's about. Iron sharpens iron. One man sharpens another, so no man walks alone. So you guys help keep me accountable, and it's great to have a group of men that does that. So I can't thank you for enough. And as far as the color goes, Mark Sims, you up for? What do you think about the color? Mark took. We always wanted to leave a nugget or two for you all to take home, and so Mark took the color example home, and I think you guys have one now, right, Mark? Yeah, how do you like it?
Well, I told you two that you guys might have saved our marriage.
Yeah, very good, very good.
Great.
So unfortunately we don't have time to do this exercise, so we're gonna. But it gets down to, again, what we want to do is try to have you do a little exercise, and do you know what your spouse's love language is, and share some best practices. So unfortunately, you don't have enough time for that. So we're going to move on and just kind of wrap up.
How many of you have heard of the love languages and know what your spouse's love language is? Okay, great.
All right. Okay. Good. So just as a recap, we started with God's design for marriage, and use the Bible, the greatest book written on marriage. And so make your spouse a priority. Have servant love. Have oneness, because that's all we're striving for. Have oneness with God, and that will lead to oneness as a couple. And then we got into communication, talked about differences that we have, and we need to understand those differences, respect them, and try to use them to our benefit to come together. We talked about speaking and listening, and we also talked about having that connection.
Then finally, we talked about the power of connection through a few concepts. So we talked about the love maps, the emotional bank account, and the 5 love languages. What we'd like to do in closing is let's look at what the Bible actually says about love as a reminder for all of us as we think about demonstrating love for our spouse. So what we thought we would do is, if we could all just say this verse together, 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8.
Love is patient.
Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs.
Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always preserves.
Love never fails.
Love never fails. So again, this is I think a great way to leave it. So the last thing that we'll say about this is that if you want to see a change in your marriage, Be the change. Take the lead, and you'll see changes made. So it essentially starts with you. Okay, so with that, if we could just bow, we'll close this out in prayer and get going. So dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity for us to speak here today. We ask that you open our hearts and allow the message sent from the Holy Spirit through PeggySue and I to be heard and taken to heart. We ask that you bless all marriages and our relationships, regardless of where they are today, and ask that you make them stronger. Father, help us keep you at the center of our lives and keep you at the center of our marriages, because it's only through you that we can achieve true oneness. Amen.
Amen.
Let's thank PeggySue and Gale Maupin.
Can we do another round of applause?
Thank you.
Now, we didn't get to finish the last exercise, love language. Here's my ask of all of you that's attending today. First and foremost, thank you. Now, every week we do an exercise, not necessarily talking about love language, because I don't think you guys can take it every week. But take it home. Take it home and do that exercise with each other, because that is very important to one recognize. And I have to remind myself, because I have love languages that my wife never will understand, and she doesn't care. Just, come on, guys.
I wouldn't want to be you when you get home.
Right after this, the fact that you guys are here says a lot about the fact that you're working on your relationships. Now, for those that are married, those that are here with your spouse, that's great. Thank you for coming. But those that are single, it's equally important to understand that you're seeking a significant other that God has chosen for you. Right? So it's very important to have Christ. For me, I'll tell you this in all seriousness now as we wrap up. My wife is the one I stand here today. I wouldn't have found Christ if it wasn't because of my wife. I wouldn't be here with you. And she proposed, and I ended up marrying her. And next thing I realized, she made a very strong argument, the fact that it's very important for you to know the Lord. I saw her go to church every single weekend while I stayed on the couch, while I stayed home. That prompted me, that motivated me to start going to church, start learning about God, and be a part of a ministry, and start volunteering with our kids. And that's kind of what has made our marriage stronger. We've been married for 18 years, and we talk about distractions, right? We talked about all those things, work and kids. For me, it was my son. If I bought a couch today, a cuddler couch, I would not be on that couch with my wife. My son would be. I cannot wait for him to leave the house again. I'm counting the days. Boarding schooler, he's going to be out soon. Go ahead.
Yeah, every week we send home with the guys, almost every week, what we call a discussion guide, because our program is usually about 20 minutes for a speaker, and then we break in small groups of 5 or less. So ladies, I don't know if you know that. But ask the guy to show you what he did that day. Discuss it together. And every meeting we do on Saturday is videoed and goes up on Facebook and YouTube by noon. We have a lot of couples that will watch it together. Then they can discuss it. It's important, as they expressed today, that you invest in each other's lives. These guys are really doing the hard work in here. And a lot of the stuff we deal with is not easy, I promise you, but it's so worthwhile. It really is. And once again, just so you know, the first line of our mission statement is we encourage and we empower men to be excellent, not just good. We're seeking to be excellent for Christ at home, at work, and in the community. Because when a man walks alone, he gets in trouble. We don't want anybody to be alone. And we're so grateful you all came today. And there's still tons of great food out there, and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Hey, and do this. You're here. For those of you who came with your spouse, take them out. Make it a date, and take them out for a nice breakfast. Buy them flowers, whatever makes them happy. I know what my wife is going to do. She's going to go home and go back to bed. With that, guys, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. Have a blessed day.